So, a very good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you today to today's Saturday talk on the geopolitics of critical minerals, a topic that sits at the heart of global power competition, especially as the world transitions towards an advanced technologies and clean energy system. We are delighted to have with us today Mr. Vasu Sharma, a PhD candidate at Shivnada University and a former NASP fellow at Takshashila Institution. His work focuses on resource geopolitics, South Asia's security environment, and India's foreign policy, with publications in The Diplomat and other leading platforms. Sir, over to you.
Going ahead, our topic for today's discussion is geopolitics of critical minerals. And as highlighted by Mayank, somewhere the pursuit of green energy transitions, the pursuit of sustainable development, along with digitization of our economy, integration of artificial intelligence for military purposes and civilian purposes. Somewhere these are the two driving forces behind policy making and behavior of state and multiple non-state. We have multiple private companies who are focusing on the pursuit of green energy technologies as well as for the pursuit of technological modernization. The geopolitics of critical minerals sits exactly between these two driving forces because these are some set of minerals which are consequential for our military technologies and defense purposes as well as they are consequential for clean energy transition. Going ahead, this would be our format of presentation wherein firstly I'll briefly talk about what are these minerals and why are they consequential? Second, we would be briefly discussing what exactly is criticality of these minerals. What is making these minerals so critical and consequential in our time? Third, I'll be also discussing I'll also briefly discuss about the supply chain dynamics and vulnerabilities regarding global trade and flow of these strategic resources. And we'll also be discussing why these minerals are so important for our military technology and defense purposes. Lastly, we'll be also briefly talking and discussing about India's policy responses towards global contestation of these minerals. Going ahead, if we see we don't have a specific standard definition of what is critical mineral. However, based on different definitions, based on different policy documents, we can identify that these are some set of resources or these are some set of minerals or metals which are important for economic and national security of different countries. And they are also consequential for our energy security. A defining factor behind critical minerals is its importance in sustainable energy, its importance in renewable energy infrastructure and clean technology. And if we try to explore further, we'll see that most of these minerals are vulnerable to some sort of and this is what makes these minerals so consequential in our times. Now, this is the set of definition which was given by Ministry of Mines in 2023. And let me also remind you, in 2023, India had also come up with a list of 27 minerals which are consequential for national security. Based on that policy intervention, we can identify that for India, critical minerals implies those set of minerals again which are important for our economic and national security and which are consequential in high-tech electronics, telecommunication, transport, and somewhere the supply chain vulnerability part and the lack of availability of these resources are very consequential. Moreover, as we know that after 2015, we have certain commitment towards decarbonization of our economy. In pursuit of that decarbonization, these minerals become much more crucial for us. So if we see, these are the common linkages between the definitions which were discussed before, and these are four set of objectives which are common in understanding these critical minerals. Most of the policy documents or definitions or most of the policies, they focus on how these minerals are important for national economic and energy security. They underline that these minerals are consequential for green energy transitions and decarbonization. And these set of minerals are also important for technological superiority and the military application. Going ahead, then the intersection of renewable energy and the intersection of green energy transitions is one of the most important ones which has been discussed. And as you can see in this slide, the any basic electric vehicle requires at least 7 to 8 minerals. These are cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, copper, rare earth elements, iron, steel, and graphite. And post 2014 or post 2015 or post the signing of Paris Climate Agreement, we have seen a surge in countries securing access to these set of. Apart from this, critical minerals are also consequential for for several other reasons, like they are consequential in medical supply chains, they are consequential in IT and mobile services, and they are also consequential in making infrastructure for renewable energy. For instance, as you can see in this slide, chromium, copper, they are very important for creating wind turbines. They are very important for creating solar panels, and this is why this is one of the reasons why we are seeing countries exploring different partnerships to secure access to these minerals. However, it is important for us to revisit the fact that critical minerals and rare earths, there are two different elements, but also rare earth elements are somewhere sub-part of these. First, if we see, critical minerals is a broad, subjective, and dynamic list of minerals. As I've mentioned earlier, we don't have a precise definition of what are critical minerals. There is no standard definition, but every country have their own list. Each country has created their own list, and they have at least 20 to 30 or more minerals, which are consequential for different purposes. An important characteristic of these critical minerals are that global south countries have some sort of dominance because most of the reserves and deposits are in global south. And if we see lithium, copper, nickel, cobalt, these are examples of critical minerals. Until November 2025, copper was not part of the US list of critical minerals. It was only after November 25 that it became part of that list, and hence after November 2025, we see the United States in aggressive policy mechanisms, aggressively following offshoring policies to secure access of this copper. But rare earth element is a different set of resources. We have specific 17 rare earth elements. These are 15 lanthanides, yttrium, and scandium. The importance of rare earth elements is a bit different because it is much narrow in nature, and rare earth elements are precisely important for permanent magnets. Now, these permanent magnets are important for automobiles, they are important for renewable energy infrastructure and defense. And the most important characteristic of rare earth element is that the whole supply chain of rare earth element is completely dominated by China. We have seen that at least 60% of uh, reserves or deposit or 60% of global reserves or deposits of rare earth elements are in China, and the processing, refining, and the downstream capabilities of these rare earth elements are also dominated by China. And this is why the geopolitics of critical minerals and rare earth elements has become so complicated indeed. Because on one hand, we have a dual purpose of these resources. These resources are important for green energy transitions, and these resources are important for technological modernization. In the sense that since a lot of political dynamics is revolving around semiconductor chips, minerals like lithium and copper are a very basic foundation for creation of these semiconductors. So while on one hand we have a global contestation, or we have some sort of a race between countries to pursue green energy transitions or to pursue technological modernization, at the same time we are also witnessing some sort of an asymmetry in terms of accessing these minerals. There's some sort of disparity in in which countries are these minerals found. There's a lot of asymmetry, or there's a lot of disparity in who dominates or who has monopoly over midstream, upstream, or downstream supply chain dynamics of these. And somewhere in the next part of our discussion, we'll be touching upon these elements. So, what exactly defines criticality of these minerals? First factor is heavy concentration in few countries. As I have mentioned before, most of these minerals are heavily concentrated in global. The top three lithium producing countries in the world are Chile, Argentina, and Peru. And popularly, it is called as the lithium triangle. Similarly, for copper, we have Chile, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Peru. And somewhere we are seeing many mining companies from China, United States, Australia, Canada, and this urgency and this scarcity is making the geopolitical competition much more complicated. Next, as we see in the whole supply chain dynamics of critical minerals, we have different layers. First, we have the upstream capabilities, which talk about exploration, mining of these minerals. Second, we have midstream capabilities, which involves smelting, processing, and refining of these minerals. And lastly, we have downstream capabilities, wherein we are converting these minerals into we are using these refined and processed minerals into the end product, which can be a battery, an electronic vehicle, or any defense. At different layers of these supply chains, different countries have some sort of a dominance. And this is one of the reasons why these minerals have become so critical. Lastly, if we see, certain countries have also avoided using the term critical because for them, what defines criticality of these minerals can be a biased position. Russia and China, they don't use the word critical minerals in their policy documents or strategies. They use the term strategic minerals. The African Union strategy for green energy transitions, they also avoid using the word critical for these resources. Instead, they use the term strategic resources, which are consequential for energy transition. And hence, because of these set of factors, the whole political contestation of these minerals has become much more complicated in nature. Now, this is an infographic. This is an infographic which talks about the supply chain dynamics of these minerals. If we start from the left, which is about the upstream dynamics, or which is about the upstream level of these supply chains. So at this level, we have exploration, mining, and somewhere identifying where we have abundance of deposits, or where we have abundance, or where we have major reserves of these. Here at an upstream level, we see countries like Democratic Republic of Congo, Chile, they have a stronger concentration of risk. However, this is one of the most crucial levels because the extraction and mining of these resources takes a lot of capital, it takes a lot of technology, and it requires a lot of knowledge and it has certain environmental and social impacts. Next, we have the midstream level, wherein the refining, processing, and other set of technological processes are in. Now, this is the level where a lot of challenges, or this is the level where a lot of complexities and why? Because, for instance, if we take the example of rare earth elements are not actually so rare in nature, but the reason why they are discussed or why they are studied so much is because these minerals or these elements are not in their pure form. Hence, there is an extraction of rare earth element. It is extracted with a lot of other minerals or with a lot of other resources. In order to ensure that we can use a rare earth element, we have to refine it, we have to process it, and we have to remove impurities, alloys, or we have to remove other set of resources or other set of minerals associated with that. And this is the level where a lot of competition is taking place. Right, we have seen that countries like China, Australia, and Canada, they have the dominance in the midstream level. Precisely, there is some sort of an asymmetry because China has a complete monopoly at this level, and countries like Australia and United States are trying to level up. For instance, Australia has set up one of the largest processing plants in Malaysia. However, we see a huge asymmetry here between China and others. Lastly, we have the downstream level, wherein we are using these minerals into finished products. These finished products can be our defense equipments, our electric vehicles, or our infrastructure for renewable energy. At different levels, we have different countries who play an important role. However, this supply chain also underlines a couple of challenges or couple of externalities which are involved in this contestation of minerals. First, the fact that a lot of human capital and a lot of technological sophistication is required in extraction, in midstream refining, processing, and downstream manufacturing of these. Only few set of countries have this set of technological sophistication and this knowledge required in these processes. And mostly China is one of the countries which again has a complete monopoly over the technology, knowledge, and human capital which is required for these. We have also seen multiple instances wherein Chinese mining companies have played a very important role at upstream level. For example, in DRC, Chile, Peru, multiple Chinese companies have invested for extraction and mining of these. Now, going ahead, again, as you can see, this is again one of the complications which is associated with the politics of these resources. Every country have their own list of minerals because for each country, the set of objectives and requirements are done. This leads to a lot of complication because since we don't have a standard definition of what comes or what comprises under the realm of critical minerals, we are facing the issue of governance. We are facing the issue of implementing any standards or rules which can be involved for mining or other levels of processing or refining of these minerals. And this sort of complication leads to a lot of humanitarian concern. For example, in countries like Myanmar and Democratic Republic of Congo, child labor and bonded labor is associated with mining of these minerals. The inability to create some sort of rules, framework, or some sort of laws and regulations is leading to a lot of complications across global. Again, as you can see, China, EU, European Union, Russia, and United States. All these four actors have different lists of critical minerals. For instance, we'll see that for Russia, diamond, oil, natural gas, these are also strategic minerals. For US, they are. Talking about the heavy concentration of these minerals, this table actually describes why we have a disparity or asymmetry between countries. As you can see, African countries and Latin American countries, they have a dominance or they have a very strong hold over the upstream dynamics of supply. You can see that be it cobalt, be it lithium, or also minerals like aluminium. Asian, African, or South American countries, they have the largest reserve. However, for most of these minerals, China is the leading producer, which also implies that China has a very strong monopoly over refining, processing, smelting of these minerals. Now, talking about rare earth elements, as you can see, according to this infographic, China dominates the production, the refining, and downstream capabilities of these rare earths. However, for us, it becomes important to note how India is the third largest reserve of rare earth elements and Russia is the fifth largest. And somewhere, this difference and this disparity is further adding to the complications of contestation of these minerals. And 60% of rare earths are mined by China, 80% of gallium is produced by China, 60% of germanium is produced by China, which implies that there is an ongoing competition between China and United States over supply chain dynamics of these minerals. We are seeing how China can actually use or weaponize its dominance over these minerals against the US, Japan, or other countries. And we are also seeing multiple policy responses by United States towards China for this. So this sort of political dynamic between United States and China is actually complicating the whole supply chain of these minerals. For example, in 2010, we witnessed one of the first incidents wherein China had actually used its dominance of rare earth elements as a geopolitical weapon. For instance, the incident was that in September 2010, a Chinese fishing vessel was caught near the Senkaku Islands or Diaoyu Islands in East China Sea or near the maritime borders of China and Japan. Somewhere, because for Japanese authorities, it was an illegal fishing vessel. The vessel was arrested. The captain and his crew was arrested by Japanese authorities. In response to this diplomatic issue, China did not come up with any policy intervention or they did not come up with any sort of official response. Instead, in September and October 2010, China had completely cut down on its rare earth exports to Japan. And this specific incident has acquired a lot of attention and it has acquired a lot of importance for geopolitics of this one. Why? Because 2010 was the year wherein Japanese companies were playing a very consequential role in automobile industry or in electronics industry. And we had Japanese companies like Panasonic, Toshiba, which these companies were actually functioning because of import of rare earth elements from China. And that is when, after this incident, multiple countries realized how China can actually use its dominance of rare earth elements, or China can actually use its dominance in processing and refining of these minerals as a geopolitical weapon. And after 2010, we have seen multiple countries come up with their own policy. For example, European Union in 2011 came up with a policy on critical minerals. US in 2018 came up with a policy of critical minerals. Australia in 2019, Canada in 2021, United Kingdom in 2022, and India in 2023. And hence, 2010 is considered as a watershed moment in understanding geopolitics of resources. And since then, we have seen multiple reaction between United States and China. For example, since 2023, China has imposed a series of export controls on United States. And in response, US has also responded with the Chips and Science Act in 2022 and the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, this set of political dynamic is very crucial for us because In the current race of semiconductor chips, in the current race of green energy transition, such back and forth or such export controls or embargoes on each other is actually affecting the supply chain dynamics, and it is also disrupting the prices and trade of these. At the same time, we are also seeing United States focusing on a lot of bilateral and multilateral partnerships. As you can see, two of the most important partnerships are one, the Mineral Security Partnership, which was launched in 2022. India is also part of this Mineral Security Partnership, and the whole objective of MSP is to create resilient supply chains. It is to create diversification of supply chains and reduce dependency on China. Similarly, in February 2026, we had the Washington Ministerial on Critical Minerals. As you can see on the picture, we had 54 countries participating in the Washington Ministerial. And again, the objectives were similar. They were to reduce dependence on China, to create resilience of supply chains, and to diversify these supply. Interestingly, India is part of both of these because for India as well, we face a similar challenge. India is completely dependent on China, and we have a huge input dependency on China for refined critical minerals and processed rare earth elements. And for past 2 or 3 years, India is actively creating policies and strategies to reduce this dependency and pursue self-sufficiency, self-resilience in these minerals. Now, coming to one of the most critical parts of our today's topic is use of these minerals for military applications and defense purposes. As we have seen last year during Operation Sindoor, or even when we are seeing the current Iran-Israel conflict, the current warfare or conflict is completely dependent on our technological modernization. We are seeing a technocratic nature of the conflict of warfare, wherein we are completely dependent on missiles. We are dependent on missile defense systems. We are dependent on unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, communication infrastructure, cyber capabilities, etc. And the set of minerals or the set of rare earth elements which we have been discussing, all of them are consequential for our military applications and defense. This makes the contestation of these minerals much more complicated and much more crucial. For instance, whenever we have hypersonic missiles which travel at a speed of Mach 5, most of these hypersonic missiles, they require heat resistant capabilities. And this is where a mineral like niobium plays a crucial, because niobium has the ability to resist heat. And that is why the processed and refined niobium is consequential for hypersonic. Similarly, if we see rare earth elements like neodymium, praseodymium, and dysprosium, they are consequential for anti-satellite weapons. And let me remind you, only four countries have anti-satellite weapons. Only four countries have anti-satellite weapons, which are US, Russia, China, and India. And similarly, these rare earth elements, they are consequential for precision-guided munitions, advanced military systems, and radars. All these three weapon systems, we are seeing how these three weapon systems are important either during Operation Sindoor in May 2025 or the ongoing crisis between Iran, Israel, and United States. Next, we also have elements like aluminium, which are important for UAVs and drones, beryllium, which is important for ballistic missile defense systems, and lithium, which is again important for energy storage, UAVs, and communication devices. You see, nickel has its own importance as hybrid batteries in cyber warfare, and rare earth elements. They are important for permanent magnets, which can be used for drones, missile guidance, laser for mining detection. If you see, we have different set of minerals which are important for fighter jets, and most of these minerals can be found in Ukraine, Russia, or Central Asian countries. And again, the this is where the ongoing conflicts have certain implications on the current contestation of these minerals. Russia, European Union, and United States, all these three actors are in some sort of a negotiation over what will happen to minerals of Ukraine. Why? Because the eastern Ukraine is actually occupied, or eastern Ukraine is currently in control of Russia. But there is the question whether Russia can use these minerals. Next, if we see, this is actually an F-35 fighter jet, which has played a very consequential role in the ongoing crisis between Iran, Israel, and United States. Each and every part of an F-35 fighter jet requires a long list of minerals. And this is why it is very important for us to understand why geopolitics of minerals is linked to its supply chain. The problem here is for every country which is focusing on military modernization and advanced military systems, they need some set of minerals, and mostly the supply chain of these minerals are dominated by China. And this is how the whole weaponization of these minerals can unfold and can be a security challenge for multiple of these minerals. Again, if you see, these are certain different utilization, or these are some different ways in which rare earth elements or critical minerals are consequential. Mostly, rare earth elements are important as magnets because these permanent magnets are important for precision warfare, surveillance, intelligence. So they are important for radars and sensors. And other set of critical minerals like copper, gallium, they are important for conductivity of energy within these military systems. Moreover, heat resistance is one of the most consequential roles through which these minerals are important. Lastly, India's policy responses and government actors which are involved become very crucial for us because in in 2023 we had in 2025 we had the National Critical Minerals Mission, which was launched. One of the objectives of National Critical Minerals Mission was to explore that where in India we have different reserves of critical minerals or rare earth elements and to create policies for. In the financial year of 2026 to 27, at least 16,300 crores of Indian rupees have been allotted for National Critical Minerals Mission. Next, we have the Khanij Videsh India Limited, which is also called as Kabil, and it was actually a merger of multiple public sector units like NALCO and several other. The primary objective of Kabil is to see how India can explore partnerships and diplomatic engagements with other countries. Since its operationalization in 2025, Kabil has signed multiple agreements in Argentina, Chile, and Australia. For example, in Argentina, Kabil has signed multiple agreements with Camion for production of lithium. In Chile, again, we have signed partnerships with Inami, which is a public sector unit in Chile for lithium production. And in Australia, the agreements focus on cobalt. And next, we have the IRIL India Limited, which was formerly called as the Indian Rare Earth Limited. It comes under Department of Atomic Energy. And IRIL is also a consequential player in identifying of rare earth elements. Several Russian government actors or several Russian public enterprises have signed agreements with IRIL for exploration of rare earth elements in both the countries and advancing the partnership. Lastly, we also have the Economic Diplomacy Division within Ministry of External Affairs, which is playing an active role. In the year 2023 and 2025, the Minerals and Mines Development and Regulation Act was amended. In somewhere, these amendments in past 2 years have provided a pathway for private actors to play an important role in exploration of critical minerals and rare earth elements. And lastly, within this budget, we saw the announcement of rare earth corridors in India, wherein Odisha, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh, these four states will be given priority because of their reserves of rare earth elements, and the objective is also to create a corridor for creation of permanent map. And all of these policy responses or all of these actors, they are somewhere intended towards reducing our dependency on China. Lastly, to conclude, we are seeing that critical minerals are reshaping the security paradigms, how countries are creating their security policies, their foreign policy objectives. Somewhere, this whole contestation of critical minerals is reshaping. Next, in an era where warfare is becoming more technocentric in nature, wherein conflict is becoming more technocentric in nature, the critical minerals are acquiring much more importance. As we are witnessing much more technological modernization, military modernization would be dependent on securing access to these minerals. Third, as we have discussed earlier, there are multiple levels of asymmetries between countries. The first asymmetry is between global north and global south, wherein global south, which is countries from South America, Africa, or Asia, they have abundance of these resources. At an upstream level of supply chain, they dominate these exploration and extraction of minerals. Second, at a midstream level and downstream level, we have dominance of China over these processes. And lastly, we are also seeing asymmetry between different Asian and African countries. Lastly, this geopolitics of critical minerals, it it poses several challenges and opportunities for it. Opportunities in the sense that India is exploring multiple partnerships with Russia, with United Arab Emirates, Canada, Australia, DRC, Argentina, Chile. We are exploring multiple opportunities and partnerships with these set of countries. And we are also trying to allocate more budgetary resources towards policy making of these. And we also have the objective of fulfilling the 100% self-reliance or self-sufficiency in the whole supply chain dynamics of these. So, with this, I would conclude our discussion, and I'm open to question answer.
About these RE and critical minerals, it is a long-term industry. Like, it's a heavy industry. So you need to the ROI come at the whole lifespan is like 80 years. You invest a lot. But how do you think most of it is located vulnerable places like Ukraine or Central Asia, where it's highly foreign influence? So how do you think it'll affect production in those areas, and how would it shape it?
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting this question. And you are correct that the temporality here is one of the most defining factors. The issue here is when it comes to Central Asia, the five Central Asian countries, they have huge reserves of uranium, which is an important radioactive element and important for nuclear energy. At the same time, they have a good amount of abundance of lithium, copper, and such other critical minerals. As of now, we are seeing Russia, China, United States, and even India approaching these Central Asian countries for signing agreements and begin with exploration of untapped minerals and resources. But the only issue here is that even if we sign the agreements on time, it might take at least 8 to 10 years to completely operationalize it into the final product, which is to completely achieve the downstream. So most of the countries you see, they are actually looking this as a long game, and this is also one of the reason why some policy analysts and scholars they have provided an interesting and elegant argument that if US is able to tap Kazakhstan and it is able to tap on Kazakhstan's lithium reserves, it could actually not only lithium but other resources, it could actually bridge the gap between China and United States. For instance, if the asymmetry between China and United States is 10 times or it is 10x, after engaging with Kazakhstan and other Central Asian countries, it could reduce it to by 1 or 2 levels. With Ukraine, things are a bit more complicated because Russia wants to secure the resources which are present in the Russian territories of Ukraine. And this is an interesting development because Russia has two different regions of abundance of minerals. One is the part which is more close towards the European borders, or which is the Western Russian territories. And the second is the Far East, Russian Far East or the Arctic region. Now, in order to tap the resources or minerals within Russian Far East, they need a lot of investment and they need a lot of time. And that is why the geopolitics of Arctic region and Russian Far East is unfolding in a very different manner as we are imagining. India had come up with an Arctic strategy, and one of the important elements of the Arctic strategy was to tap on those resources. And similarly, we have Chinese companies also which are in a competition to secure access of those resources. So that is why, and coming back to the question of Ukraine, Russia wants to secure its access to Ukraine's resources. US has also signed certain agreements with Ukraine, and European Union also has its own stakes involved there. How it would unfold, I think we might have to monitor these developments more closely, and we also need to actually see what are the policies and governance frameworks that Russia, European Union, or United States is implementing. Because US is closely watching Greenland and Ukraine for their abundance of rare earth elements and critical. Now, we have to actually keep on monitoring this. We have to actually keep on monitoring the diplomatic engagements and governance frameworks of these. So, thank you, Balram. I hope I have answered your question.
So my question is, one is how far Chinese are successful or it is economical for doing mining in the ocean beds. Second question is what India should do. I mean, what kind of action plan India should do on.
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting this point. And again, deep sea mining and exploring minerals within the ocean bed is something which a lot of countries are focusing on, right? And as of now, we have the International Seabed Authority, ISA, which actually is is trying to provide licenses to different countries to explore deep sea mining opportunities or deep ocean bed exploration opportunities. The technological sophistication which is required for ocean belts or deep sea mining, it is a very advanced technology. At the same time, we have different regions within Indian Ocean or Pacific Ocean for this. Precisely, if I can first talk about India, India has 3 licenses to explore deep sea mining exploration opportunities in the Indian Ocean region. When it comes to China, even China is trying to explore the whole deep sea mining and deep ocean bed mining opportunities. But again, as I've mentioned before, this seems to be again a longer game because we have huge resistance from different NGOs, countries, and civil society organizations. The resistance is to completely the ban or partially ban deep sea mining or ocean bed mining opportunity. Because once we start mining within the ocean bed or sea bed, it is going to affect the marine life. It is going to affect the underwater ocean life. And it will have a lot of ecological consequences. And another point here is that oceans also are one of our global commons, which means, there is a lot of complicated element of who can access ocean resources and who cannot. Although we have the maritime boundaries and nautical miles assigned to it, creation of artificial islands and such tactics is going to affect which country has sovereignty to which maritime territory. So again, if you see, India also has a deep ocean mission wherein we are trying to provide certain resources towards deep ocean mining. And we are also trying to explore partnerships with different countries.
But only thing is whether it is economical or whether China has been successful at least to some extent.
Economical, I think so. The deep sea mining is not very economical in nature, but we have some only limited countries like India, China, or United States who are actually actively pursuing this. How much successful China is, I think we might have to look further into it because the International Seabed Authority does not it does not allow the process of mining. The contracts are only talking about exploring these minerals. So I think we'll have to further monitor how these licenses can be changed, or we have to monitor to what extent does the International Seabed Authority allow exploration and the consequent act.